We call the meeting of the Economic Development Advisory Council July 16th, 2026 to order, and we will move past the approval of minutes pending a quorum, and we'll go through the financial report. Well, I know we need a form for that.
Yeah.
All right, new business.
Okay, let's jump to new business. Just a couple of things just to let you guys know. There was some new regional workforce data. I just thought some of this stuff was very interesting to tell you guys. It was just out. So when they say regional, this is Gibson, Posey, Vandenberg, and Warrick counties. It talks about our unemployment percentage, the size of the civilian workforce, the number of job postings in the first quarter of 2026, and then the average posted wage with all of those job postings. And I can send this came in a little more detailed report. We just pulled out some stuff. If you look on there, healthcare continues to be, and the actual occupation is registered nurse, continues to be the top volume by what kind of jobs are. Through that, they also talk about the local high ed pipeline here and kind of what people are going into. You can see again, well, other is the largest one, but healthcare is the largest piece of that bucket, followed by business, and you can kind of see the percentages there. You can see the top degrees earned by regional graduates and what those are in. So I think this is just current information, so I just think it's interesting for you guys to see. And then there is this stat about the high school and what percentage of that workforce, what percentage is in the workforce.
So you are.
And so it's like participating in the workforce. What percentage are participating? And then you can see also the other chart, the last chart on here, guys, is how many high school graduates there are for every posted internship in our region. So there are a lot of high school graduates per internship that's posted. So just interesting, something to kind of just take the temperature of and keep track of. We like to kind of look through this stuff when the new updated data comes. I got nothing else really on it. Outside of the charts, I can't really answer any questions, but we get this stuff sometimes quarterly, sometimes twice a year when this stuff gets updated. Anyone have anything on that?
Do you happen to know what's the acronym LF?
It's something about participating in the workforce, like what percentage of the population's participating in the workforce. I don't know the exact initials there. What's happening, Jenna? All right, Paul, you want to go back and knock our stuff out?
I do.
Okay.
I'm looking for a motion for approval of the minutes from the June 18th meeting.
So
Second. Either or, whatever you want.
take our pick.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Financial report.
Okay, financials were distributed in the packet. You guys have seen stuff like this before. I'm happy to take any questions on the edit version of financials.
Current cash balance and the beginning.
Yeah, we'll look at that. We can look at that and it's in the RDC stuff when we do summaries. Do you have an estimate about what it is?
Edit cash balance.
It isn't. We're about to get that for you. We have that. We get that information as well.
That's something that we have to spend the whole.
Okay, any questions?
Move for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, just some updates for this board with our abatements that this board approved. So Project Duck, which is a plastics project between two companies, Ultima Plastics and ACO. Ultima Plastics is US, ACO is German. The confirming resolutions were approved unanimously by County Council at the July meeting. And so this is a co-location project that would land in Shell Building. We did our final 2 annual compliances. We have to go through all of our existing ones. Those were both updated at the July meeting as well. Another update just for this board. IDC had a policy change, and it is a good thing to get a lot of incentives. Their HBI incentives, their EDGE tax credit incentives, they used to require new jobs to be at 125% of the current county average. And so the current county average in Warrick County is 2962, which is a high number. And they wanted 125%, which would be 3703. Effective immediately, we got a notice that they've made the change that the jobs to be considered just need to be at the county average, which is a big difference. Just as an example, the jobs in Project Duck were all gonna average like $32 to $34 an hour. Now, there's also qualifying volume of new jobs for a lot of these incentives. So you have to meet other priorities and other metrics, but this is a good thing, which allows with new jobs, that could be current businesses that are expanding, or could be new businesses coming here. It gives us just another tool in the toolkit to introduce them to the state, because these can be significant. If you talk about EDGE tax credits, if it's a high, these are high paying jobs. If it's 100 jobs, I mean, we're talking, these are 7-figure incentives over time. So it's just a good policy change. Just came across the desk. All right, any questions on that? Okay, now let's talk about this. Here's a wellness trail update. And here are some great, I can't believe I have so many pictures to tell you guys about. But the wellness trail has had a rough summer. First off, we've had a bunch of the trash can liners inside the trash cans taken.
The bags.
Nope, the inside that, see that, that's a hard metal piece. Inside there is actually a plastic trash can that the liner goes in. Those are about $99 each. And we have now had 9 taken. Now, 5 of them very recently. Some of them were in the past.
We're gonna do a sign up sheet for people from here to patrol
The
this
stakeout.
area so that we can catch.
I did ask the sheriff, and I don't think it was deemed a good source of resources
So we're gonna do it.
to catch the thief, but it's a frustrating thing. So we'll go top to bottom. So next to it, through the windstorms and some other things, there are some signs that are out of skew along the wellness trail as well. Bobby Howard and the Highway Department have it on their list. Their sign team's gonna come out and get all of those put back in, facing the right way and all of those things. The next piece is there is a missing diamond pedestrian crossing sign. The sign and the post are both missing. That's the mid wellness trail crosswalk that is by the Encompass Rehab Hospital. So Bobby is gonna order that and get that replaced. If we continue going around clockwise, some of it due to the wind, we have these signs. You can kind of see it in the picture before it. If you look down the wellness trail, every other one has a wellness trail sign. And so we are missing several of those. That custom sign, one needs to print, and then we need to pay for them to get out there and get up to elevation. If we go around, let's keep going clockwise. This is more about just a makeover. The Redevelopment Commission, and this board's talked about it too, is looking at this vision plan. We have these projects in the Epworth area, the district and the sports piece and Ohio Township Park, and all of these things we're trying to get to better. I just bring that up because that sign's pretty faded and doesn't really pop anymore. And so I'm gonna bring that up when we talk about rebranding and what we're gonna do to kind of spruce up the neighborhood. If you look at the next sign, the first half of the wellness trail from Epworth Road to the roundabout was done significantly earlier than the second half going to Libert. So if you look at the first half, the street road striping is starting to look terrible in certain places. That is something that the Highway Department currently does not have funding for. they already have their projects in their striping already done for this year and next year and stuff like that. And then the final one is another light pole that was struck, which was another call to the sheriff. And there are no reported accidents or incidents around that. So Lamb Electric caps those so that no one gets electrocuted and that nothing's live. But we have another one that had been hit and capped. The first one is you come in from Epworth. And so we are getting quotes on those fixtures were put in a long time ago on comparable lights to replace it. The reason I'm bringing this up for this board as well is remember that most of this stuff here was built with TIF dollars, along with some grant money from regional cities and some stuff, but like, that's what went into the wellness trip. The redevelopment commission and TIF can spend money to build all kinds of infrastructure and things. One of the things you cannot spend TIF on is maintaining anything. So the dollars that need to come for these things have to come out of edit or somewhere else. But so we've already got trash cans replaced, the signs will get straightened out, the other sign will get replaced. We're getting some costs on multiple things. I will see if we have it in the edit budget where we have some funds for different contractual services and things that we can make it through the year and spend on, but it may come back to county council as we want to. It's really the only road outside the industrial park road in Warrick County that has streetlights and this trail and these benches and all these things that we try to bring in these dynamic developments. I really think we should give it some love. So that's just a full.
I wanna ask NDOT if they have any of that red paint left over, we could use that on that side.
Full, just a full spruce up of the wellness trail. Anyone have any questions on that?
Suggest if you do come to the council, bring all of that.
Yep.
And who's doing the other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're not just saying, well, we want you to do it all.
Right.
So just a suggestion.
Yep. No, I'll take that to heart, Ron.
Do we need to invest in trail cams?
Well,
Yeah, it was good.
the problem is
Where do you put them?
there are like 2 miles of trash cans. So we need a lot of cameras. I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't say what the secret plan is, but I was gonna put air tags on all of these cans. And then I was gonna figure out where these things are going. And it's just frustrating, not only because they're missing, we gotta pay for it, but then the phone calls come that the can is just covered in whatever. And people still put stuff in there without the liner and the plastic piece.
Yeah.
It just. We thought about buying little locks for them, but then the guys that mow and take care of it, then have to get every lock undone and. We're gonna get a solution because we can't just keep having these things. Going.
Any guess on why somebody's stealing them?
I wish I knew.
Pretty trash fit.
I was gonna go into all the businesses and locations around here and look for these cans. In their hallways or something, but I don't. Your guess is as good as mine.
We might have checked out a lot of apartments.
So, I just wanted to give you guys an update that, we need some stuff taken care of there. Okay, next, July County Council meeting. County Council unanimously approved $100,000 for the Warrick Bucks program, so look for kind of a back to school here promotion coming up soon, and then obviously we do a big holiday bonus card promotion to drive people into the small businesses in our community. Okay. Speaking of maintenance and upkeep and money, I just want to let this board know, Ron and Greg, we'll see this next week at my budget meeting. I am going to ask for a new edit budget request, and that is to do some pavement sealing on our trail network. And it's gonna be a $50,000 annual request to do maintenance that needs to happen and is going to save us from, it's gonna extend the life of these trails. It's going to improve the usability, you know, trip hazards and other stuff on the trail. and stop us from what sometimes happens, unfortunately, in the county, is we wait until things are completely broken, and now we got a giant emergency and a giant cost. So what I wanted to show here is we have 2 test segments of this surface treatment called Liquid Road. They've been highly successful. You can kind of see them called out in the overhead of Freedman Park. The county 4 years ago had some extra, we were sealing some parking lots and had some extra, and Joe Sheeter got asked, hey, do you have anything? And he said, well, let's do some tests. So we have 4 years of experience. You can see the two sections, that's a more recent picture, are still dark black. If you go out there when you leave today, when you leave the trail that comes across the park here, look to your right and you'll see Old Trail. Look to your left and you'll see this picture right here. So what we really want to do is that $50,000 basically covers 2 miles. And so we have 15 some miles of trail, but this creates I think, an amount that we certainly have in edit. Dollar figure that we can afford, and it allows us to do 2 miles at a time, because some of the trails were put in 10 years ago and really need it. And other trails, we don't want to lump sum because some of the trails just went in last year. Those trails are fine. And so it allows us to do a kind of a schedule of the biggest needs and schedule those per year. And we just looked at the wellness trail. We want to try to find ways that we maintain the excellent facilities that we have. So happy to answer any questions, but just wanted to let this board know that that's something we're looking to go into our budget. Okay, no questions. Let's go to some old business. So we talked a while ago that we have 2 arts and culture projects here in Warrick County. We want to get a public arts commission going. And that basic structure of the Public Arts Commission is ready to go to the commissioners as a draft for them to look at how we want to create that, which is great news. And we talked about a potential county performing arts facility, partnered with the school corporation and their needs. We talked about it being out there in the Epworth district as we try to put these public amenities out there and trying to connect something. We applied for these Lilly grants. This was funded by Lilly. It's technically called the Ready Arts and Culture Award. And the interesting part is that, and Abby and Courtney know because they were involved in these, we got these emails saying, so sorry, your project wasn't funded. And I sent you guys this whole PDF. There are some really cool projects. Look through it. Hopefully it inspires you guys for when we talk about nice things in the community, there are some really good projects in there. Well, we kind of got you guys weren't funded, but give us a call if you want to see about how we can help you in the future. And then this got released a week later, 2 weeks later. And lo and behold, on page 4, outside of the project grants, they also have these capacity building grants. And both Warrick County programs were listed as receiving capacity building grants. This just basically happened this week. So I have reached out and can't find any information on the details of what a capacity building grant is. I've reached out to IEDC. I just have not heard back yet. I was hoping to hear before this meeting so I could update everyone. But it seems like we have a grant coming. We just don't know. And both of our grants were really for capacity building because they weren't physical projects. It wasn't to build a center because we don't know what size and scope we need. It was for feasibility study. And the performing arts was for a public arts master plan to bring in some people alongside us to help us create like a 5-year master plan for public art. So they kind of were capacity building versus a lot of things you saw were awarded these big projects were physical buildings and program expansions and things like that. So while we were sad, the original slide before this week had a big sad face. Took that off and put this up there after this came out. So, any questions on that? As soon as I find out more, I'll let everybody know and we'll move forward in whatever direction is appropriate. Okay. Okay, some quick updates for everybody. We had provided some funding, county council approved funding for 4-H to get a new livestock barn project. The commissioners needed to approve the contract. That is basically, we wanted to put a contract in place about the scope of those funds, what they're used for, clawbacks and stuff like that. The commissioners approved that at their last commissioners meeting. And then which is great. 4-H is thrilled and excited to get going. They're not gonna get going until the fair is over. And kind of, they step back for a week or two of fair cleanup. Fair is going on right now, so you can go tonight. It's tractor pull. You can go tonight and support the fair, but they will get started in August. They've been fundraising for the gap. They're getting close, which is one of the triggers that initiates this funding. And then they're gonna work with the county and Sherry Sievers, who's the county purchasing administrator, to make sure this thing goes out to bid and kind of checks all the boxes we needed to check. So that's good news. Speaking of out to bid, the new Scales Lake Gatehouse, which is a really cool project, one for the Parks Department, but two, adding public amenities at the front side of Scales Lake. That is currently out for bid. We plan to come to the September County Council meeting for funding, which will be a combination of edit and parks bond funding that we already have and some park department revenue. So that's exciting. And then finally, Linville baseball softball expansion. We are trying to fund that project out there in Linville. They did receive a $25,000 grant from the commissioners, and we are working on detailing quotes for the parking and playground pieces so that we can figure out what the gap is there to move that quality of place project forward in Linville. They're super excited. Their season's wrapping up and they're getting ready. You know, they may have enough funds to get the first piece of that going. They really need to double the fields there. They only have one real field plus a practice like T-ball field to help them expand options for kids in the Livermore County and alleviate some of their scheduling and everything else. So those are good project updates. Anyone have any questions on those? Yep, Jared,
What's the grant amount for the board for the,
$500,000.
what's the budget, what they're trying to get raised?
It's going to be, the whole project's gonna be about $600,000. So again, we are providing a bunch of that funding for each. You look at their financials, they put everything back into that fair and their camps and all of those things. Plus the county owns that facility, the fairgrounds. And so they need to come up with the remaining funds. We're expecting those bids to come in at a minimum of $600,000. Probably over, but whatever is over, they're still responsible for raising. So they've already gotten some foundation funding. They got potentially some additional funding coming from the commissioners. And they are starting a fundraiser next week. And they're waiting to hear from a really big grant that they applied for in the ag industry to kind of close this gap and get this done. So
But our grant was 500,000.
correct. I went for 450,000. County council upped it
Up to-
in their generosity to 500.
I never asked them.
That's great, so I think,
But still, everybody has to come in first.
Yeah, they have to secure the remaining funds.
which is how much, 100,000?
It's gonna be.
It's gonna be based on where they come in at, Jerry, but right now we're saying about 100,000.
You're anticipating bids to come in at six.
That's where we're at right now. They're working with Jonathan Lamar on pricing and all that, so they have a good handle on what that looks like, what it's going to be. They are doing some in-house work on the prep and the site and some of the demo to save them some money, so they're putting some sweat equity into that project as well. I expect by November for that to be fully funded, because the plan is to have that new facility ready for the fair next year. They have until the following year to get it done. So we put timelines on things, we put clawbacks on things. They have until 28, but everyone's goal is to have it ready for the fair for next year. And I think we can do it.
I was talking to Dave Sir last night, and he said, when the heads up out there, and they're pretty confident. They're really getting real close.
Yeah, no, I think
They're gonna start tearing it down pretty quick.
they're gonna get there.
Yeah.
I have full faith in them.
That's great.
They put a lot of hard work into the 4-H program. Okay,
What about the gatehouse? What's it cost and what's that?
I don't know where that's gonna come back. I think it's gonna be about $1 million project. They had kind of 3 versions of that and they went with like the low to medium version of it to keep costs down. But they are adding like camp stores and vending and public bathrooms. And so, I mean, it is just like the livestock barn, which was done in 1962. The gatehouse has outlived its purpose. That's how we do it. Okay, anything else on that one? Okay, this is from the update email, just to let you know, we are going on a bunch of business retention expansion visits. The picture on the left is from Alcoa. On the very far right of that picture is Vanessa. She took over for LP as the facility plant manager for Alcoa at Warrick County. She is, I really like her. I think she's gonna do a good job, and she's been a good partner so far in the few months that she's been here. On the other side was us inside the new Matrix building over here off of, as you come in from Van Road. And those visits include obviously Warrick County Economic Development, they include the state IEDC, they include workforce development, they include EREP. When we need to bring utility partners in, we bring utility partners in. And it really is a check-in on the businesses to say, what's going on? Are you having any struggles, or do you have any opportunities for growth? And then what you find out, we talked about the state and EDGE credits and HBI credits, and what you really learn is there are a lot of opportunities that these big employers don't know. I think they know about Warrick County. They know that TIP exists and they know about tax evasion. They don't know that workforce development has training grants. They have internship and fellowship grants, and state has some technology. If you're gonna include technology and robotics and advanced manufacturing in your spend, they have grants. And so it's just really a run through of what's in everyone's toolbox, so these companies know to reach out and what the procedures, and put maybe some faces to people that they can contact with. So we've been to a few people recently. We've got a few upcoming ones at Prime Foods in Phoenix, and that's really it. Any questions on that?
Has APCO accepted their contract with the union?
Yep, all done,
It's done?
Yep.
Oh, praise the Lord.
which is 1 year further than they had before, so they're really happy about that.
Good deal.
It got down to the last kind of wire as these things kind of do, but it got done. Okay. All right, additional items. You guys had to go through the roundabout, or the detour for the roundabout over here at Oak Grove and Anderson. I get a weekly update on that project. You can kind of see that the intermediate completion is set for the end of this month based on them trying to get open before school. And they kind of did with the last project, they opened the intersection before all of the grass and all of the other stuff was done to alleviate traffic. If you've been over there lately, I mean, you can look for some of these pictures. They are making progress. They've poured some of the road. They've got their curbs and islands in. You know, some of this depends on weather. We can miss 5 days on a bad weather week. But they are making progress. We continue to get updates, and
They don't want it to look like the Lloyd with the paint, or
knock on wood, no. This is not a state road, and this is not an NDOT thing.
The law, yeah.
You will see the islands. I can't really blow that up, but I mean, the islands have some stamped concrete in them and stuff like that. It's gonna be nice. They're reconnecting to the trail that goes through there that we built, because they had to cut a bunch of that out, because they shift the whole geometry of the intersection. They shift it over, and so it's getting there.
July 31st, 30.
That is what was in the agreement. Now, again, they have some permitted delays, so depending on how many days they've missed with weather and other things, but they are really, I know they are trying to get the traffic flow open by the time school opens. All right, any questions on that? Okay, the only other thing, I've already mentioned it. There is the fair schedule, so it's tractor pull tonight. We talk about 4-H and what a benefit it is. Get out to the Warrick County Fair. I'm sure they've had a record number of animals this year. Warrick County is one of the 4-H's that's still growing in Indiana, which is a real positive thing. And this is a true 4-H fair. What you don't know is some other fairs that are great and you may go to around here are really county fairs where 4-H participates. This is run and operated by 4-H. So I was hoping to get an update. We just didn't get it. You can see my placeholder there, but NDOT was supposed to have the next meeting. This is for our connecting sidewalks and bike and pedestrian stuff through that corridor of State Road 66, all the way to the French Island Trail in Newburgh. And so they were looking at some places to host that meeting. It was supposed to happen by the end of this month. I just don't have that date. Because then if you're interested in any of that, I would encourage you to show up for that meeting so that we can provide feedback and highlight what's important to Warrick County. Remember, they're catching Warrick County up to Vandenberg. We kind of got added, which was great. A little later, so they've been speeding up here. But we don't have that date yet. Any other questions?
You go on the 4-H fair, drink plenty of water. Places are giving away.
Yeah, it is. Are either of you guys gonna be in the dunk tank? Cause that could get a crowd.
Been there, done that.
Okay. They should put out a schedule for who's in that dunk tank.
Oh,
That would get some people showing up.
yeah.
All right, any other board business to come before E EDAC? Okay,
Need a motion.
favor motion.
Motion to adjourn. I'll second. All right.
Okay, we are adjourned. We will give it a minute or two and.
So the minutes were passed out already, do I have a motion to approve? Steve, do I have a second? Second. All those, any discussion? Yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, minutes passed.
Okay, financial reports. You guys were sent the summary of funds plus the our kind of forecasting models for each of the three TIFs. I am happy to answer any questions on any of that. So I'll open for questions.
There's no questions. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Financial status.
Okay, moving to claims. So we see right here that we've got $44,441.71. Holly did send an email out this morning if you were able to look at it with a couple of last minute claims. This kind of happens every month. We don't get them in. They have to wait another 5 or 6 weeks to get paid. And so you guys got those put in. They're in front of you here, the different folks, and the invoices were part of the packet. Happy to answer any questions on claims for them.
There are no questions on claims. Do I have a motion to approve? This to be paid? Motion to approve. Second.
So,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Okay, next up, the biggest item, we got a couple of big updates besides working on this EDA that I want to get to, but the biggest piece is I want to go through the EDA with the board. I'm gonna kind of give an overview of that agreement, the incentives, the clawbacks, the land, the timing, the structure, and then we can certainly open it up for discussion, along with just some new updated stuff. So we have some new updated pieces and puzzles. I'm gonna show you guys the site map and the facility map moving forward. This is basically, if you're on Epworth Road, this is the side facing Epworth Road. This is the front of the facility.
So is that what they want it to look like?
That is
Design.
what it's going to look like. So when you look at the plans and the windows and all of those things, there may be an extra door added or two, and I'll talk to that when we get there. But just remember that several of these decisions, this project is getting approval, kind of sign off that we're good with what they are doing. This is kind of the site map from the roundabout, and you can see kind of, this is hard to see on a screen, but you can see, I want to point out a few things. One is you can see all of the parking, and I wish we had a color version to show you around the perimeter of the property. Is a ton of landscaped green space, so that as you're coming down Van Road, or if you're coming through the roundabout, you're seeing kind of a nice entrance and some green space in the parking lots as well. There are little details, like out in front and around the building is all patio and pavement, including parking spots for food trucks and picnic tables and other things. And just some little bells and details that we've talked about. You can see that there's some additional space that will be for additional parking highlighted in the red. And I'm certainly not an engineer, so reading all that, but the building is also being set so that you can add 2 more bays to this building to expand again the number of ports. You need, I think, 60 feet wide to expand the number of bays, but the first section of expansion is carved out. There's a second section all the way to the property line, and that's why nothing is behind this facility. As we look at the facility, so you can kind of even see in here that adding another bay adds 4 more spaces of court space or turf space or anything like that. I'll go through the scope that is in the agreement for this facility, but the scope hasn't changed. You'll just see kind of the details here. So you've got 9 courts, with one of them being a separate, completely walled off championship court, which is in the bottom left. That allows you to do a bunch of things, not only have a special space for championship games with preset seating and locker rooms and other things. It allows you to be flexible in the facility, meaning they could rent that space out to dance or put down wrestling mats or do archery or something else while volleyball and basketball are going on in the main gym. it kind of in behind all of the glass, you can kind of see across the front. All of that open space between dark black spots is all that glass that you saw on the front of the building. But they have a really nice, concourse feature. And you can see some tenant build out space in the other side of the front of the building. And then there's a lot of details on storage and stairs and all of that stuff. When we look at this and the site, what we've always had as the project parameters, and this is important because this is what we are incenting. These are the project parameters.
I don't want to interrupt you there, but you pointed out me, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
The parameters talked about 9 full-size basketball courts, which convert to 18 volleyball courts, but that's not what that picture showed there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sorry about that. Volleyball courts, they've got pickleball courts in here and all kinds of other courts that you can put on here. Volleyball courts on a full-size basketball court go this way.
We're gonna run them that direction.
And so, well, they do, they convert two basketball courts convert to,
Okay.
sorry, one basketball court to 2. So that's where the map
Okay.
discrepancy is. Some of these, like in this red color, that's designed for pickleball. And so there's pickleball, and I think they're even gonna be flexible to be able to get a tennis court or so at the high peak of this building. Tennis, for some reason, you need the highest clearance, but they are designing it for as much flexibility as possible. And this is where Jared's point about the 9 = 18 is right here in the second bullet point. So this is just a written version of what you see on there as far as the size of the facility, the courts, the full-size championship court, the hard court services, convertible to turf, the open space in the main gymnasium, and those other features of locker rooms and wellness centers and all of those things. And design plans and final stuff shall get approved and all of those, this is the parameters for that agreement. When we say, what are you delivering? These are the parameters. They match the ready parameters that were in that piece as well. And so, the ready one had actually 8 full-size basketball courts, but we've been at more than that in our design for a while. So other than that, it lines up and matches. And so I know that agreement, I know that Brad came in and said, Herb, did you write this when he looked at it? And I talked to Brandon, who's not here tonight, about, he almost asked the same question on the phone. What I want to do is really focus on sections 3 and 4. Section 3 and 4 are the incentives, the timing, the clawback, and the land. A lot of the stuff outside of 3 and 4 are just contract language, who's who, what are the definitions, and who's indemnifying who. And so what I want to do is start. I got like 7 or 8 slides, guys. I want to, but just so that we can talk about all of these things. I want to start at the high level macro and just outline the incentives and the clawbacks. And then we're going to drill into actually the points from the contract that have dates and deliverables. So we have 4 incentives attached to this project. 2 of them are ours specifically, the Redevelopment Commission. 1 is ready and 1 is tourism. So that's the 4 incentives attached to this project. The 2 of them are basically based on the front end construction. And 2 of them, like the tourism dollars that are sponsorship each year, and then the fact that we're doing developer purchase bonds from a tax perspective, those are really incentives to help the facility be successful in their annual operations. So the first incentive, this is what this board met with when we increased this amount to make this project happen. This is the performance-based forgivable loan that is a TIF-backed bond. So I want to make that clear. These are only backed by TIF. There's no county general or property tax backup or anything else. These are backed and contained within the TIF. It's structured as a loan and not a grant. So the loan is only forgivable, and we'll go through all those milestones, but only after the developer meets all required performance milestones. Project completion, COO, operator, and that the facility's been up and open for a year. So I got 2 slides on all the details from the contract, but that's one incentive. The second one is economic development revenue bonds. I call those developer purchase bonds. We've talked about that with Project Vivid and stuff. We've never done one. It is really a way that the developer funds or purchases the bonds. And it's tied into just the taxes on that facility. So it helps, again, annual long-term operations of the sports facility. We are allowing them to recoup their taxes, so it's not part of their pro forma on this building. And so that's the developer purchase bond. County general is not pledged, and if for some reason their taxes go down or state changes the rules, any shortfall is on the company. The county, taxpayers, etc., are not responsible for any repayment shortfall. And I have another more detailed slide on that. Transfer of the land and site, that is something else. In the contract, we're conveying the Epworth Point site to this facility. That's what the redevelopment commission used the ready funds for. It was infrastructure and getting the site ready and purchasing the site. That transfer is tied to other contract obligations and time and construction and the facility. And then tourism has already pledged $100,000 a year times 10 years to support the facility operations. The company provides sponsorship and marketing package to tourism so they can promote Warrick County to all these visitors. It kind of goes into the conversation is that, you know, we want a big screen when people come in to say, here's where to eat in Warrick County, here's what's going on in Warrick County, stay in Warrick County, and all of those things. So that's just a very high level of the 4 incentives. We're gonna get a little bit in the weeds. We've got really several layers of what I call clawbacks, just like we talked about with 4-H, and we always put stuff in there. We've got a clawback on the construction risk that we have. We have a clawback on the investment risk that we have, and then we have a clawback on the long-term operational risk. And so the construction risk is if they failure to complete and hit milestones on the project from construction, there is loan repayment and ready reimbursement. And on the investment risk, we are holding them to not only building what they say they're going to build, but spending what they say they were going to spend. So even if they deliver the facility, and we expect them to be able to deliver it, do the site work and do some sweat equity and stuff like that. But we have a clawback in there as well. If you hit those milestones, but you're not spending what you say you're going to spend, there's a clawback in there as well. And then there's an operational risk, which is long-term. And so that's if the facility for any reason stops operating as intended within 10 years. Basically, we can get the building finished. At this point, the building's finished. You know, that's the construction risk. We get the building and the land back, and then we've negotiated to take on, because we're getting that asset back. We've negotiated to take on up to a portion of any remaining construction debt. And so the first, let's go back here real quick. The first one is this forgivable loan. So I know there's a lot of words on this, but I just want to go through it. It's structured as a performative-based incentive loan, not a grant. It only converts to a grant after all the milestones are achieved. It's only funded by RDC TIF. It can be set up as a draw bond. It is not backed by any other county funds. Some of the security, company signs a promissory note, forgivable loan agreement, and the county receives a subordinate mortgage. There is a clause in here, just so you know, that we can release portions of that mortgage because we're looking for complementary development on the other side of Orthopedic Drive. And so that's already parceled into 3 separate lots. So if one of those lots needed to be transferred to somebody, we have the option in there that only if RDC approves that we could release portions of that mortgage. The term is 9.5 million and 6% interest. Interest is also forgiven as long as performance is met. The maturity on that was at 10 years. However, early forgiveness is possible, and or if they don't do what they're going to do, it triggers repayment. The way that it's getting dispersed is on the right side. Initial funding is that 3 million of that will be paid at closing. And remember, this is to support construction. That's no later than December 31st of 26. And then we're going to spread the rest out as construction takes place. And so you can see that there's monthly payments for the rest of the funds. And there are some other performance protections on our funds, meaning monthly payments stop if less than 50% of the project is complete by March 15th. And then the payments only resume when they reach 70% completion and the project is back on schedule to meet the required deadlines. So we have a little bit more of a pause in there that if construction falls behind for any reason, we can stop our payments until they get caught up. I think I got one more slide on that. We talked about what triggers the loan forgiveness or them having to pay it back. There were 4 triggers. Operator that we approve is hired. Facility completion within the required timeline, 2 years. Certificate of occupancy is also received within that 2-year period, and that the facility is actually opened and been operating for at least a year. So that would be 3 years from the start. If they meet all of those and we get the building built that we are expecting and the project open and meets all of these timelines, that loan is going to be forgiven. If they do not, the recovery is 100% of the forgivable loan plus the interest, and it's on a 90-day forgiveness deadline. There is another trigger built in there that if their delay causes us to, repay the ready grant, it's also in there that they will have to repay that as well. So besides the loan, we're tying another layer in there based on their milestones of completion. That chart was just pulled by pulling all of the dates and stuff. It's kind of the stuff that we already talked about. So that's the forgivable loan piece. The economic development revenue bonds, remember these are developer purchase bonds. So we are going to take out these are the taxes. So instead of tax abatement, we went with a developer purchase bonds. Only pledged from the real property tax increment on lot 1, which is only fenced around the sports facility. No other county funds are pledged. The length of that principal amount can be up to the length of the TIF, which could be up to 25 years. The TIF's already in place, but that's the length of that TIF. The bond size limited to what reasonably can be supported. So when we started looking at this for Vivid, we basically kicked off, what's your investment? What do we think it's going to assess at? Baker Tilly will do some of this math for us and provide that to us. It's basically a pledge of their taxes back to them for some operational back-end support to make this facility successful. The bonds are privately financed or purchased. That means that they purchase or fund the bonds, or you can secure a third party to purchase the bonds. People monetize bonds to generate revenue on the front end. So all of those things are allowed. Whether they purchase it would mean, let's just say that this bond is $3 million. They purchase it, they spend $3 million, and they get the revenue from the bond to put into construction of the project. Funded is something else. It's another avenue that basically, instead of them coming up with that cash up front, if they are spending that money, and they have spent enough to fund the bonds, you can also deem the bond funded by them putting the dollars directly into the project instead of giving the money, taking the money back, and then spending the money. It reduces a step when there's enough dollars going into construction.
Which is what will end up happening on this project, because we're not doing this bond issue until the completion of the project.
So they will have already spent that money. So instead of giving it to them up front, and Herb's correct, if you look on the second side, these bonds are not going to close until 30 days after substantial completion. So basically they have to put the dollars in that back up these bonds, because we're not even going to move forward. Remember, they won't have any taxes even coming back to them until, let's say they finish in 27, they'll get assessed at the January 1st or 4th or whatever of 28. And your 28 taxes you pay in 29. So that's why we're waiting until the project's complete. There's no rush to close on this piece. This piece comes after construction. They are also covering the cost of issuing the bond when we issue it. So that is they'll pay our bond counsel, municipal advisor, local counsel, etc. So they are covering the cost of that. And then, as I mentioned before, if the bond is hoping on taxes of $200,000 a year for this parcel. And the state changes the rule on property taxes. And there's only they only have to pay $150,000. The company alone is responsible for any shortfall on that bond. It's not tied to the county, it's not tied to the Redevelopment Commission. They are the ones on the hook for them.
But instead of a 10-year phase down, this is a 10% on these bonds.
This can be up to the length of the TIF, which can go up to 25 years. And so that's one of the reasons we went with that is we want to support this thing every year that it's operational.
It's really a way to reduce his operational costs on a going forward basis because he pays taxes that it gets back.
And as we've talked about in here multiple times, you know, these facilities run lean. These facilities are subsidized, whether you look at Old National Event Plaza or Grand Park up in Westfield. And so instead of us being on the hook for backstopping any losses, which a lot of communities are, project comes in the hole, we are just geo-fencing, whatever your taxes come in, we're gonna help support your ongoing performance that way versus any other support. Land in sight, so that is we transfer the property, which is lots 1 through 4, at a purchase price of $1. Closing deadline is September 30th, 26. We are allowing them early site access because they are on a deadline to finish this project, so they want to get going immediately on some site work, utility work, and other non-vertical stuff to get moving on this project. The company, we have it written in there, we're gonna grant them early access to the site before this closing date. They want to get foundations in, footers in or whatever, you know, ASAP to get going. So in that contract, they are assuming all risk about early access. They are taking that reliability on. And for some reason, if before this closing deadline, if closing doesn't happen, they are on the hook to restore anything that has changed on the property and any damages. The schedule on that, you can see on the right side, and that's why we're allowing early access because they need to go. And they are ready to go. They have, you know, they've been ready on the construction side for a while. We've been trying to get a whole bunch of other, like this agreement, like the tourism agreement, the requested feasibility study, all of those things done. There are some long-term commitments in there as well. They're tied to the land and site. You can see them listed about operating and operator and marketing and promoting and some of those things. We are going to talk at the end of this, after we talk about this agreement, there are a few steps RDC needs to sell land. That's whether that's the North Warrick Industrial Park, or we did it with Prime Foods or whatever. There are certain steps like getting to appraisals, which we're in the process of. We have to do an offering letter, which we've already done in North Warrick for the entire park. So we'll talk about those steps that are on the way for us to be able to transfer this property to somebody. We just have to follow the rules. This is not really a big slide. This is not really us, although we do have a paragraph in the agreement about it that we will help make sure this happens. But Steve's been on tourism. This was approved a long time ago by tourism. They just have been working on papering what tourism is getting as far as digital advertising in there, promotions, logos, all of those things to support Warrick County. I expect that to be done in a couple of weeks. But basically, it's to provide annual funding, $100,000 times 10 years to support this project. And that they are working on signing an agreement that puts that together. So that's kind of what I feel the important pieces of this agreement are. Like I said, the stuff outside of section 3 and 4 are some boilerplate items. This is to make sure we understand. Oh, wait, that's not this. That's somebody online that putting their recording on. The thing that's important is these are the incentives that were approved by this board. This is talking about how we structure them in both the timing and the clawbacks and those pieces. So at that point, I will just open it up to this group and go from go from there with the questions that you guys have.
Have we at any point seen like a operating pro forma?
Yes.
Okay.
And the bank requested a feasibility study on that. And so that was created by TPMA. Again, that was picked by the bank for who to do it. And so they've gone through every line item in there, from birthday parties to court rentals to everything else, with dollars per hour of court space and all of those other pieces. And so those pieces, those operational pieces of the pro forma all came back. I talked to the person that did the piece just so I could just pick their brain on it. They thought if anything, they were maybe, that it was conservative. Like there could be operational dollars that this facility could get that weren't in that pro forma when they looked at other facilities. And so all of these things, like a broken record, we've looked at multiple ones. I've been to Grand Park. I've been to them in multiple places. The ones that succeed have multiple revenue streams. They have flexible floor plans. They have t-shirt sales and concession sales and cameras, so grandma in Florida can watch the facility. And so ones that are doing that are taking advantage of multiple revenue streams. I think the flexibility is certainly built into this facility. So,
Which is one of the reasons why we're requiring them to hire an expert in operating these kind of facilities.
yeah, they are not operating.
So they're finalizing with Edge Sports, which is who we were gonna go with to build the facility, until their new parent company decided they didn't want to be in that business anymore. But Edge is gonna operate the facility. They operate 15 to 1. I mean, they've got facilities.
They didn't want to be in the ownership business anymore. They're still heavily in the
in
event and
operation.
sport operation.
You don't have many
business.
facilities they operate right now.
Sports facilities, it was at like 18.
Oh.
I don't
So
know.
they've got a lot of experience in operating these. They understand the different revenue streams, how to monetize these best and things like that. So we've got a good operator.
So when you say clawback, what does that mean for us? We
So-
buy it from the bank that has the first mortgage, if we when you say clawback, what does that mean?
So when it comes to taking the facility back, is that the one?
What do you mean by clawback?
They pay us money back.
Who's they, an LLC?
Airport Development.
Correct. And to your point, Brad, that's why also some of it's structured like the 9.5 that was approved as the upfront incentive. It's not given a lump sum. It's based on the buildings actually going up, the projects moving forward. And so we're going along on all of those pieces. And to your clawback question, if the facility stops operating as intended, basically the clawback is we'll acquire that facility that's already been built and met all of our scope and all of our spend and all of our other things. And so we will have an asset that we will have the value of the building, the value of the land, and that asset back. That's the final clawback. If for some reason,
But you don't have a 4.35 million cap on the liability that might be sitting out there that you're clawing back either, correct?
what do you mean?
What liability are you talking about?
At the bottom there?
You're gonna
Bank.
claw it back from a company that goes bankrupt.
Right.
They shut this company down.
Yep,
Then there's a debt that you're gonna subordinate to for our position. We're not in first on the property to
Right,
claw.
we
anything
pay
back.
$4,350,000.
But what if we don't have any documentation that caps the liability at 4.35 million either, do we?
Yeah, that's.
yeah, it's in there that it cannot exceed. So if their exposure is 7,
Don't worry about bankruptcy risk.
If-
Would we go above that, it'd be the amount of the loan, but. Yeah, we capped that $4,350,000.
To that term.
The bank's not looked at this agreement. No, I have no idea.
Okay.
We capped at $4,350,000 what we do if we assume the loan, but that's assuming there's still a company there. You sound like you're concerned about bankruptcy risk. The bankruptcy risk would be whoever the lender is and the loan that they're seeking is $7 million, assuming it didn't get paid at all. If we want the building back, we'd have to take the lender out and pay $7 million. So we would have a facility that cost us effectively what it costs them between the incentives we're providing close to $7 million.
Yep, I just want to.
I mean, that's the bankruptcy risk. We get the building back, but we assume the mortgage. I mean, I wouldn't expect something like this to go bankrupt until, I mean, even worst case scenario, it operates for a while.
Yeah.
Before something like that happens.
Or everybody gets sick of it or something. Okay. That's my question.
But we don't have any sort of financing commitment, so we could sign this document, but there's not yet a guarantee that they've got financing. We don't have anything on paper.
Airport Development's got a 30-day out under this contract if they don't get their financing in place the next 30 days.
Okay.
Then I assume they would probably exercise.
But you got all the triggers that, we don't, if the loan didn't go through, we've got all the triggers that stop.
Right, none of our stuff will take place.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, we
And
would be out it. We
We're
would
not
be
out
out
any
money.
money if they.
They haven't,
But they also want to mobilize and get started immediately too.
Correct,
they believe they have
with non-vertical construction.
the
So it's not-
funding and
it's not
ability to
just
get
steel
started on this
building.
project immediately. And I don't wanna speak for the project, but obviously there's an investment group that is involved, there is equity that they have, there is company cash that they have. There's a lot of other pieces of the puzzle. They fully plan to move forward with that $7 million construction loan as a piece of their project. That's the direction they would like to go. But again, to your point, if,
I understand.
okay,
I'm good.
There was one item that talked about how if they did not spend 80% of the estimated $25 million project cost, that's $20 million. Then they were responsible for up to $4 million reimbursement.
Right,
But that $20 million calculation would include developer overhead and administrative costs. That's something that could just be, that could be an arbitrary number. Is there any protection against that, or have we seen like an estimated budget breakdown?
so as far as where those numbers come in, I think we have, but I don't have that in front of me.
Okay,
It was not a concern that those pieces that are kind of part of development.
sure,
I mean, they'd have to show they spent that money on
Right.
overhead.
okay,
So Upwork Development LLC would have to open up its books and say, here's what we spent on this project and
Okay.
overhead,
okay,
personnel, so on and so forth. So yeah, they'd have to prove it.
okay,
It's not further defined as far as what's in or what it's out. It would be
okay.
whether it's overhead or not. And whether they actually spent those dollars.
So some-
Stepping back from the agreement for a second, Steve and I have been working on the sports facility deal for years now. We've looked at a lot of different sports facilities in a lot of different communities. What we decided early on, from a structure standpoint, is we kept seeing the local community or the redevelopment commission in the local community being the owner and then hiring an operator for these facilities. And what we've seen is, from an ownership standpoint, the redevelopment commissions are usually the ones behind it, and they're still paying on those bonds years and years in the future. We've seen some of them try to sell, so the redevelopment commission will back the bond and do that, and then they'll try to sell the facility. Grand Park is a good example, done great for a community, great community asset, but they couldn't sell.
Yeah.
But we wanted not to be in the ownership business.
Sure,
I will say the other thing that we saw was a financial backstop for any losses the facility has in a lot of community agreements. And we didn't want any part of that. And so what we are doing is we are supporting it by geofencing this project and saying, we'll support you with the taxes, whatever it generates. to help your operations, but if you're 5 times that 1 year. Because of whatever the reason, we're not getting into the operational backstop.
Yeah.
We do want to provide some support for their pro forma and their annual operations, so.
I mean, philosophically, it's structured differently than we've seen them.
Yes,
Because number one, I don't know the government's that great at running much of anything. And so we provide the funding to make the project happen and then get out of the way and let private enterprise run the facility.
and I'll just say to a conversation that happened earlier, maybe everyone wasn't here. There's benefit inside the walls of this project. And then there's big benefit, what we really want, what tourism wants, what the region wants. We want the facility to be successful.
Sure, yeah.
But we want the benefit that comes when you look at the tens of thousands of room nights and visitors and people that come in and spend and buy gas and go out to eat, all of those things. That's really what this project is.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we're trying to structure this in a way, it's always been the case, it's why we upped the incentive. We wanted to structure it in a way that this project is successful and can move forward. And so we want to incentivize all of that. I understand some of the items that were brought up, but we wanted to put some milestones and some other things that at different places give us some different options here where, yeah, it's successful. And the tourism piece and the attraction piece, quality of place piece is really what we're going after.
Just one last quick question.
Yeah.
So estimated project of 25 million. Let's round up and say we're given a forgivable loan of 10, they're financing 7, that's 17. Do we know where the remaining 8's coming from? Is that their equity?
Well, so
Is there other available money that they're pulling from? Or-
you've got,
Part of the project cost is the land and the improvement to the land, which is 5, which is already there.
correct,
Okay,
and they're above in the budget, they're above that 25 number. We just, for what their cost is going to be on this facility, we just wanted to set a bar that we knew was achievable versus if you tell me exactly 27.2, and we put it there and you're 27.1, and too bad, you're out of luck. This and that, so we set that bar a little under their expected budget. And I will tell you from some of the changes, even since we saw that budget, when it's talking about landscaping and food truck connections and different pieces, every time we do something, add an overhead garage door or something else, the budget goes up. And so that's one of the few pieces I am not worried about at all on that spend. And so some of that, to your point too, when they're, the land and the improvements were part of that, but also, we have an owner that is connected to really moving dirt and doing site work. And so a bunch of that is going, a bunch of that, those pieces of it are going to be internal sweat equity put into that, and there's still costs there.
Yeah.
But those costs are lower than anyone else could do it if you were hiring a third-party person to do all of that.
And we got an owner that's acquired some of the acreage and has got an option for all the other. That's 294 acres north and northeast of this. That's incentive to make this work because this is other development.
sure, I understand, but for this purpose, I was just curious about that first breakdown.
Sure. Questions?
Any other questions?
I like that. You actually have capability of expanding that. Future.
It just was important because you don't know what. That could be outdoor expansion. You could do some outdoor pickleball courts or a splash pad or whatever the need is. We wanted to have that ability and not be landlocked. The fact that they have surrounding acreage also really helps. Because it's not connected to this project at all. But there's also now a small entertainment food piece that wants to basically be on the parcel next to this because of the volume and the people. So when we talk about, I do expect the dominoes to start falling even before it opens, on the benefit that the redevelopment commission has. It's like that, it's a much smaller play than Grand Park. But again, if you look at the development around there and what's happened out there in Westfield. Not only the visitor piece, I expect this to drive additional development. And other pieces of the puzzle, and so. We've always looked at this holistically. You know, both inside the fence and outside the fence, and the benefit for the region expands exponentially. Beyond the fence.
Would you be able to have like conventions in that?
You would, there's going to be approximately 70,000 square feet. That you see everything from conventions. I don't know in this facility that you're gonna put, you know, we're just doing one overhead garage door. I don't know that you're gonna get an RV show on that hardwood floor. But as far as conventions, when you do tables and you see these things used for regional science fair. Again, it's maximizing the hours in there. You see regional garage sales, you know, rent out space like this to be indoors and you set up tables and. We all know sports, there's on seasons and off seasons. That's when you're gonna switch to turf, reconfigure things, but I certainly see that opportunity. I think the largest convention space, like one single open space, I think, don't quote me on this, at Old National Events Plaza is 38,000 square feet. So the open space here is about 70. Again, it's not its primary function. But all of those things are gonna be open. I will tell you in Grand Park. Keep going back there, but the interesting part is that's a 300,000 square foot facility. And they were getting community pushback because they kept booking tractor shows, car shows, and everything else. And the sports tournaments started getting mad, but they were doing these national shows that were bringing people to Westfield. And it became a real point of contention. Now, this was 3 years ago or something when I was there touring with the director, but they were still trying to find that balance. Because once a show is successful, doesn't matter. Once Party of Paradise comes to Friedman Park, they're not looking for another venue. So you see these things come back and back, same like we have certain conventions that keep coming to Evansville because Evansville is a good host. So I do think that is an opportunity, Steve.
So is there an action?
I
that we
mean,
need to
basically,
take?
the board needs to either approve or not approve this
Okay,
to move forward.
And authorize you to sign.
so is there a state,
I make
do I
a
motion to?
motion to
Approve the Warrick Gateway Sports Fieldhouse Economic Development Agreement.
and for
And authorize the
For Courtney to
executive
sign.
board.
She's the president.
Courtney to sign.
Do I have a second?
All
All those in favor?
Yeah, we have to
Okay,
read
to
it.
sign.
Aye.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and it passes.
Okay, get Courtney's John Hancock. Now, let's keep going. We got other big updates here. This is not one of them, but there are 2 more coming, 3 more coming maybe. Okay. This is this offering sheet. And so again, we did this before me. Larry Taylor and Tom Kimball did this at North Warwick Industrial Park. You have to, due to Indiana code, to provide property, you have to go through certain procedures. Part of that is to appraisals. We are waiting, you know, we've
Got one of them back and waiting on the other one.
we sent those appraisals out. We're waiting on the other one. The offering sheet is, we have to offer that property up. Herb, you can explain this.
We've got to offer it up for sale to bidders that potentially want to bid on the project. But we can also tell them one of the requirements in addition to buying the land is you got to build a sports facility. So we're really checking boxes. The statute says get 2 appraisals, we'll get 2 appraisals. We'll go through this offering sheet. We'll publicize it per Indiana code. It's got to be in the paper twice, goes in the paper, potential bidders come forward. I don't think there will be any, but somebody might bid. But it's the process we got to go through to get to the point where we can sell the land to Upwork Development for $1 as part of the incentives for the project. So we're checking the boxes. This is one of the boxes. And like he said, we did the same thing we being Tom Kimple did the same thing for North Warwick Industrial Park 25 years ago. And they offered all of the park for sale at the same time. nobody bid it, but because he went through that process, now we can negotiate directly with potential.
So we didn't go
We
through
don't have to
this,
keep going through the
Right.
we
process.
didn't go through this when we provided a parcel to Phoenix Specialty
Right.
Films or to other people in the park, because we'd already checked all of those boxes. We have not done this on this property, which we've just
So we gotta go through.
for a
this
short
process.
period of time. So, do we need action on this, Herb? or-
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any questions on the offering sheet? We're gonna get that going starting tomorrow. Okay, couple of project updates. We got a bunch of project updates. So Project Duck, confirming resolution I told you guys was approved at the July County Council meeting. Woodward is working on a purchase agreement with Ultima Plastics. That's the company that's actually buying it. That's the US company. And then the ACO team, including the head person, which is third generational family. There have already been a team from Germany here, but that team is coming, will be on site July 28th and 29th for more negotiations. And it's not negotiations about purchasing the building, it's negotiations between these two companies on purchasing what volume at what price. The US is the resin manufacturer. The German company takes the specialty resins, puts it in a press and kicks out their construction. They sell things that are used in construction, ACO does. And so they are still working out their internal agreement and also their lease agreement between them. ACO's planning to lease 50,000 square feet of an expanded shell building, which will go from 100,000 square feet to 200,000 square feet. So that is good. We just got the update from Ultima this week that the German team is coming in. They hope that that meeting here at the end of the month gets them through the end of their negotiations and inking their stuff and purchase agreements being built. So all good updates on Project Duck. Project Vanguard has their abatements approved. We could talk about edge tax credits. Remember, Vanguard's jobs came in at $44 an hour. So they were above the 125%, which we talked about earlier. They qualified for a large edge tax credit approval because there are 100 jobs, because of the value of those jobs. They are waiting on some ready funding that's going through the region, through SWRTA and EREP. They are really waiting for all of their ducks to be in line. They've already signed their lease for the building, but they don't want to do anything public or start taking action until all of their incentives are locked in and whatever. So their lease, I think, began July 1st, but they are waiting to take action until all that gets done. We are expecting that to get done on an accelerated timeline with the state hopefully very soon. And then we will talk about helping them with some hiring. We'll talk about like a announcement and a groundbreaking and some other things for North Warrick. So hopefully we have that announcement after the duck stuff gets signed. We'll do that announcement out there. And so,
And Vanguard, just to be clear, Vanguard's in Paul's building. Duck is in the
Shell.
building.
Yep. Okay. Any questions on those two?
Ben, do you know when the purchase agreement will be signed with Duck?
I don't know. I just know that the attorneys were still putting it together and
I didn't know if there was a time.
going back and forth. Not that I know, and I spoke with Evan Beck this morning. Okay, so Project Vivid. I have been informed in the last week and a half or 2 weeks that this project has been put on hold and has moved back on the corporate timeline. When I asked when, they said basically not in the next 4 years, as far as they go through their spend. We had a conversation, not with Project Vivid, with somebody else in the region. And they've worked on a bunch of these projects from an engineering side, and says whether it's the fertilizer plant in Posey County or you name it, these big $500 billion projects. One, seem to take years and years, and two, as you get distance from them, the likelihood of them happening start shifting. So I let the project know that Warrick County can't hold the land for an unlimited amount of time. I did provide them an option to purchase the land. Now, remember, the land was always part of their incentive, and told them that if you want to purchase it and provide the dollars to if you want to hold this site, you can buy the land and we'll still include the land. We'll make it whole in the incentive package, because that was always our intent, was to provide all of that acreage for the jobs and the investment that was coming. So We had that conversation on the phone. The project lead said, please put that in an email so that I can run that up the chain. So I'm not expecting them to purchase the land, but at least that option is out there. What
That
that,
would be like 113 acres at 25,000 acres, so it's 2.8.
2.8.
$2.8 million.
But you thought they'd already spent $1 million,
they've spent over
Yeah,
10,
more than that.
over 10,
over 10 million.
yes,
Gee,
which is,
amazing.
just. That was verified by multiple people, but it is where we're at. So here's what this board needs to know. Here's the interesting thing. We've had 3 parties express interest in building on lots A and B. As far as recent. We have said no, or please wait in line, because remember, for Project Vivid to come, we need to find some space for a new substation for Duke. Water would get upgraded, sewer would get upgraded, but certainly electric would get upgraded, and CenterPoint's got some gas upgrades coming regardless of some new line coming in the future. We were looking at site A as the most logical place to put that substation. Because it's close to that red line that goes north and south, that is a CenterPoint transmission line. CenterPoint and Duke would have to come to agreement to pull power off of that line. We were kind of holding that as we have that land in control, we put it there and it can feed this big green square. So I think we had a conversation today. I have meetings with Duke next week. Duke's gonna be at our Project Phoenix site visit, but I'm meeting with them and their engineers the day before to really talk about electrical capacity, if we know Vivid's not coming. What's left after Duck and Vanguard hookup in capacity? Do we need to make improvements now? Because even if we have 113 acres, we want to make sure we have water, sewer, and electric to parcelize those out. So I'm gonna get some answers from Duke. I think the goal is to get Duke for us to figure out a different place to put the substation. Because I would like one of those parties to put together their stuff on paper and bring to the board. I think it's a nice investment. I think it's a nice development. I think it works off Nobles Chapel, which is not a huge semi-truck road. So I'd like to move forward with just to keep moving on development. And then also, we are gonna go full steam on attraction again for projects, whether you need 10 acres, 16 acres like the Shell building or whatever, which we've kind of been holding off on due to Project Vivid. So that's our plan. Does anyone have a question? Okay. Next big update. Here is our friends at the Dominion. The Dominion. Remember, this board approved $5 million in incentives, which was matching a ready grant of incentives for this project. This project informed the region, EREPs, Florida, etc. In the last week, that they are not going to move forward within the timeline that the ready grant requires. So that means 2 things. I'll leave it here is that their project, I've been asking them to come here and repitch their project because this is an old picture. Their project's tweaked and changed and all kinds of things. It has some really neat components in this project. What's highlighted is going to be different as far as what happens, but they're on they had to get all of their commitments in by the end of July. So they kind of waited until the last minute, which is unfortunate for multiple reasons, but they also had to get their project open by a certain amount of time. And due to the way their project has shifted and who's going to lease space in the buildings and those things, they can't hit those targets because they're not going to build an office or medical building of a certain size that sits empty for 18 months and no one's in there to lease. So. We are where we are with it. They are going to come back when they are sure of what their project is, ready as Wallingford. But if it's a good project, if it's one of these things that makes the wellness trail better. This board needs to reconsider it. And reconsider what, if any, incentives we're gonna provide. So we are on hold until that project. Comes together and timelines line up. Any questions on that?
We can roll. Did they mention why they're not moving forward is, or can't meet that ready deadline or?
One is, the main one is they're not going to get the project started or finished within the timeline that they need to get it finished. The reasons. Pricing gap, financial gap to close their stack, their projects changed. The last iteration I saw was actually a bigger spend of a project, but a bigger spend means a bigger gap. And so, I know that they were trying to manipulate a lot of things to kind of fit in that box, and that for most of this time, I think they really felt they were going to get to it, but at whatever point, it just didn't make sense. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Okay, since we already talked about the Epworth TIF, we talked about North Warrick, here's some pictures. We're going back to Phoenix because that visit made me think, I gotta bring some other regional partners in here, because they are expanding like crazy. This is gonna be their headquarters, and we say headquarters because they do have facilities in Texas now and also in Florida, and this is their headquarter campus. In the front of this building, you can't really see by that white truck on the left, there's a second story conference room that overlooks the floor. They have an office off the front of the building, which you see in these other pictures with all the windows. And then this is gonna be their research and development arm of what they're doing. They are growing pretty fast, which is great. And we may need to find some more land for them because they're out of it. So it is a really good story. I kind of kept anything else from Epworth or North Warrick.
Phoenix is interested in the land that is where the substation was gonna go.
Site
So
B.
we'll probably start talking to them again.
The only other thing I had on here, we don't even need to get into it, but if you like math and you like numbers, I just thought I'd give this to you guys from an educational standpoint. Every year this is done for the TIF areas. And really, what really matters is that column that says neutral factor and whether it's above 1 or below 1. The math, each TIF has a sheet here. Here's your math sheet. You fill out all kinds of things about what the base value was in 2025, what the new incremental value is, what the current value is, all of those things, and you come out with a factor. What it really means is, and what the goal of it is, it adjusts the base. We set the base assessed value when we started the Epworth TIF. But neutralization is moving that base up or down, because basically we shouldn't benefit from non-growth or construction. Things happen, like assessments go up, things happen within here, so it adjusts the base. We get TIF for everything new above the base. So here's the interesting part is that Epworth, can't even read these numbers in. Epworth is almost at 1, but it's slightly below. So if you look down here, the old base value for the Epworth area was $68.1 million. And then you use the factor, and now we have an adjusted base value at 66. That's for 27, 66.9 million. And it is complicated. Baker Tilly's explained it to me, but you look at new growth and then you look at decreases. We had $11 million of loss in demolition or change in tax status. So that could be a building going tax exempt, or like demolition is, it's a bad example because it was tax exempt, but like they knocked down the old Ohio Township Fire Station on them. So that building got demolished. They demolished Family Video to put up a 7 booth. But if they demolished it a year ago, it's just a negative for the value of the TIF. So At one is you're staying the same. And then your changes plus or minus are based on these factors. They are very small, but it's required by the state every year to look at this. And it certainly does affect the TIF dollars a little bit here and there. Obviously, if we had. I don't know, if we had Alcoa. Demolished, if they just pulled up shop and bulldozed, we'd see giant swings in these things. But. This building being built, this stuff being demolished. That's what Baker Tilly told me. It's normally right around one, and it isn't something you should sweat, but now you have the information in case you want.
The number on that sheet that's interesting to me is since this redevelopment commission board created the F-word TIF, there's been $553 million of additional investment in that area. So that speaks a lot.
No, that's a big number.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got. We got any other board business? If not, it's time.
The motion to adjourn.
Just make a move. Okay, we are adjourned.